A controversial casting of a teenage heartthrob, a reset of a franchise that crashed heavily after a promising beginning, a director best known for a split-story tale centered around memory loss. It's difficult to say that anyone could have predicted that a new venture into the world of Batman would be such a success. It would bring a much-lauded trilogy and create waves in the industry that are still felt nearly 2 decades later. And before we find ourselves moving any further forward, it is time for the original Batman film series that began in 1989 and dominated the film industry through 2 successful sequels, 1992's Batman Returns and 1995's Batman Forever, unfortunately found its demise in a 4th entry, 1997's Batman and Robin. Over-the-top scenes and imagery, a second recasting of Batman, a villain-heavy semi-plot that left no room for true character development, the movie was less about the story and depth that any one character would need, and more about flash and cash. Even some of the biggest names in Hollywood couldn't save a fan base that was exhausted in what their beloved Batman and Gotham had become. The failure was enough for a massive big-screen retreat from the incredible stories that lie in the pages of countless comics. A retreat that lasted almost an entire decade. Fast forward to 2005 when massive rumblings about a new Batman movie coming that summer. Was the world ready? Was it still too soon? As fans could still sense the bitter taste of cheesy one-liners and absolute injustices on Rogues Gallery favorites? The answer? No, it was not too soon. But also the world may not have been ready. With a film that is often credited to be one of the pioneers and examples of a reboot, Gotham was reset. Wayne Manor was something new. Bruce Wayne / Batman was in the hands of a master of their craft. In 2005, Batman Begins. Fans around the world embraced a new telling of the origin story. A dark Gotham, a broken, lost, brooding Bruce Wayne trained at the hands of Ra's al Ghul himself, only to part ways as the two had different ideas on how to handle the world and Gotham's concerns. And Gotham's concerns? A city gripped with literal fear induced by a chemical designed by Dr. Jonathan Crane, aka SCARECROW. Batman is faced with an immediate challenge in stopping Crane from destroying Gotham, only to find that the backbone of Scarecrow's operation was none other than Ra's al Ghul. Bruce must now face the true face of his enemy, risen from the dead through trickery instead of an ancient pit. Only, it turns out that one can't always truly cheat death, as Batman emerges victorious knowing he won't kill, but he doesn't always have to save others. Bit of a gray area there, Bats, but what do I know? A sequel immediately went into production with rumors of a Joker performed by Heath Ledger and a Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, by a fairly unknown Aaron Eckhart, led to yet another bout of uncertainty. Could a former teenage heartthrob really have the chops needed to handle such a heavy role as the Joker? The answer? More than yes. From the opening scene to the very end, Ledger's Joker drives every single moment and action of the story, bringing the only thing he ever desires: chaos. Devastating Gotham's largest crime organization, manipulating those sworn to protect into those willing to kill, even turning Gotham's White Knight, Harvey Dent, into the villain Two-Face with no one able to stop them but Gotham's protector, the Dark Knight. The second installment into the Dark Knight trilogy became not just one of the greatest comic book superhero movies, but one of the greatest film stories ever told. And thus, a third was born. A new threat from a masked mercenary and mastermind of a criminal underworld, BANE. BANE comes with a mission for Gotham to atone for its sins, for the corrupt to have their day of reckoning. And reckoning happens. In a loose adaptation of the No Man's Land storyline, Gotham is cut off from the outside world, with a threat of nuclear destruction thanks to a weaponized reactor core stolen by BANE and hidden in Gotham. With the police trapped underground and a Batman that was broken by BANE and left in the prison he escaped from, Gotham had no protector. I was wondering what would break first, your spirit or your body? Fortunately, the answer was Bruce's body. His spirit helped him recover, escape, return to Gotham, amass an army and a cat, and defeat the villainous but organized league that had overtaken his city. With a final, seemingly sacrificial effort to save Gotham, the Dark Knight rises. These 3 movies told gripping, gritty stories that always remained in a realm of realism, telling the world that this could be possible. Comic books could be reality. The influence of a dark and gritty world reverberated and became the basis of all things DCEU, for better or for worse. Nevertheless, director Christopher Nolan and 3 incredible casts gave the world 3 timeless stories and one of the most iconic characters and perhaps the most mimicked Bat voice ever. And now, thanks to the team at McFarlane Toys, fans get to add some of these iconic characters to their shelves and collections with a new wave of amazing representations. Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan, aka JK of JK Collects, and in this episode we are taking a closer look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, The Dark Knight Trilogy, Build-A-Bane Wave. I'm Batman. Hey everyone, welcome back, and here we have it, the Two-Face figure, Harvey Dent, or number 3 of 4 in the Collect to Build, the Build-A-Bane collection from McFarlane Toys. Let's take a look at the back. There is that same presentation, our promotional image of Tom Hardy as Bane. To the right, we have our Collect to Build collection, so this one comes with the torso for Bane, and then down there at the bottom, we see the card that comes with this one. That is the I Believe in Harvey Dent, that promotional poster, but that promotional image that comes with it. So over here on the side, we have Two-Face, the Dark Knight Trilogy. There's our DC Gaming 7-inch sticker, and there is our Dark Knight Trilogy icon. And let's flip it around to the other side. There is Two-Face, our side view of the figure and everything that comes with it. The DC Universe Infinite QR code with it available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Let's flip it around to the front, take a look at the figure, but let's do that exploded view. Boom, there we go. So we can see everything that comes with it. So we've got our Two-Face holding his coin. There is our figure stand, and there is our I Believe in Harvey Dent card. We've got the Build-A-Bane torso. So what a cool figure. Let's bring it back into the box because as usual, this is not the way that we came to look at this figure. We came to look at it at a closer look. So without further ado, let's bust into this one. I Believe in Harvey Dent. Hey everyone, welcome back. Here he is, Harvey Dent from the Dark Knight Trilogy from McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse. Such a long introduction for a figure, but hey, what a cool looking figure. I'll tell you, this representation of Two-Face is just so creepy and so haunting, but so real, right? And but you know what an excellent version of this figure. Let's take a closer look at it before I dive into my opinions on the way that they did it for a movie. Let's look at this head sculpt. How phenomenal is this? How just creepy. Let's start over here, right, with the Aaron Eckhart head. I think they did a pretty good job of representing him. I don't know if they had full rights or not. It doesn't seem like it's 100% there, but it is very close for an action figure, right? I think they did a good job, especially when you only have half of a face to work with. I'm going to say that's a pretty good representation of half of the actor Aaron Eckhart's face. And what they did with it, the sculpting of the hair, masterfully done with the different shades of brown, lighter, darker, kind of like a tan in there. And then the ear sculpt, the painting of the eye, the mouth, the sculpting of that, very well done. And the way that it transitions over into the Two-Face side from Harvey Dent. I mean, look at that. There's the chin area of the skull showing through. You can see some bone showing through there in the jaw. Look at the massive eyeball showing through. I mean, just it's disgustingly amazing. All of the little musculature that's showing in there, the tendons, all of that stuff. They did a magnificent job in also showing that it is burnt. I mean, look at the shine of the burn on the neck. They went all the way down on that. It just feels grotesque highlighting this thing, but gosh, they did an amazing job. But let's check out some of the articulation of it, right? So it is another one of those. The neck is part of the torso. So we have excellent side to side thanks to that ball joint in there. Let's look at up and down. So up, wow, fantastic. Not bad at all. And then down, also fantastic. Good chin to chest effort. And then, you know, with the hair not really getting in the way too much because you only have 50% hair, he can look up fairly well, especially if you kind of cock it to the side and let the, we'll say the burnt side do most of the work. And then, of course, full Exorcist rotation. I have no doubt on that one. So there we go. That worked very well. The burn on the jacket, and it is textured, right? So this is not just painted on. That is actually sculpted in, textured burn. And I'm guessing that is supposed to be a liner that is the red showing through, or blood. I'm not really sure what the idea is with the red. I'm guessing it must just be blood that's like running down. I'm not sure, though. But regardless, it is very well done. I am a big fan of it. It does attach up here on the lapel to the shirt, so you can't really pull it back to look at the shoulder. But if we look closely at the shoulder, it looks like we don't necessarily have a functioning butterfly joint in there. But boom, that does not take away from flexibility, right? So it does flex pretty far back. It does that full rotation. We have the bicep tricep rotation there. We have the double elbow. Look at that. Oh my gosh. He can pull a magic quarter from his own non-existent ear. So there we go. And then speaking of the coin, right? So there we have one side. And look, we also have a messed up or scuffed or just imperfect faceless side is what we'll say, right? So very interesting. That's odd, right? You'd almost think that it would be both. But it kind of looks like this is intended to be a face. I can't really tell. And then on that side, it looks like it's not. I don't understand what they decided to do on this one, right? Is it the original I create my own luck coin, or is it supposed to be the damaged version? And this is the damaged side. It just doesn't really show. It kind of looks like they had a coin that was both sided and then they just kind of covered it with something, because they definitely don't match. But I'm spending a lot of time talking about a coin. The other arm has the same articulation, even if it's not as burnt and singed. And then in the mid-torso, we have that full range of motion that we're getting with a lot of the McFarlane toys. Pretty good backwards arch, right? Not bad at all. And then the forward, also very good. I mean, just by seeing how the jacket billows out right there. And I like that the tie is separate and flexible, so it does move, and we have that articulation sculpting of the shirt that follows all the way up. We have waist rotation, and we have the belt with the flexible crotch piece that helps mask any kind of gaps that would show up in there. So there may not be a lot to this figure, but it is very well done. I like this Two-Face. I just don't necessarily like the texture change here in this crotch piece all the way across, like both sides, that does not match the pants texture. So that's very interesting. I'm curious why that happened. That would be one thing that I would definitely ding this on, is I don't know why the textures are different, because it is the same pair of pants. But I digress, and let's check out the leg flexibility, because we have a double knee with, wow, look at that, all the way up. Pretty good flexibility there. And then we don't have any calf or upper thigh, but we do have that lower for forward and backward. But the cuff of the pant is, of course, impacting that, getting in the way. We do still have that toe articulation, and we do have the ability of doing the sprained / semi-broken ankle. So not bad. And then the other leg has that same capability. Taking it a step back so we can look a little bit more at those paint apps. We kind of saw them as we went through, right? So along here, the sculpting, the texture to that, the burn, and the red paint that's in there that I'm assuming is supposed to be blood running down, because if half of your face got burnt off, I imagine you're probably going to get blood, at least on that half of your clothing. And then around here on the back, very cleanly done, right? So nothing really amazing to stand out, good or bad. Nothing bad. Everything is good. That's what I'll say. I'm not going to say nothing good. That is very well done, because he's Harvey Dent, right? He was the DA, so he's in a suit. He's going to be in that presentation. And then this is Two-Face. This is a very realistic style of Two-Face. So there we go. That is our Aaron Eckhart Harvey Dent from the Dark Knight trilogy, Two-Face. Hey everyone, welcome back, and here is Batman. Let's start with the back as usual. Now we have a little bit of a different presentation than what we normally see with the individual figures, with this being part of a collection, a Build-A-Figure or a Build-A-Bane set. Over here on the left we have it looks like a promotional image from The Dark Knight Rises of Tom Hardy as Bane. To the right of that we have the Collect to Build, showing the map of all the parts of Bane and what comes in this particular package. So Batman comes with the legs. And then down here at the bottom it shows the 4 cards that are also part of this series. So obviously one comes with each figure. Over here on the side, as usual, we have Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy with the that typical McFarlane font. Up there at the top, we show the Dark Knight trilogy batarang, or that style of the Batman logo. There's that sticker that we're starting to see. Now this one is actually classified as DC Gaming 7-inch, which is odd because it's actually from a movie, not so much a game. Over to the panel side, which has that DC Universe, the QR code where you can scan to get more information. Looks like you can get some imagery. And it also shows where you can download the app on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And then there we have that side view of Batman. But if we bring it around to the front, we can see the full view And there he is, DC Multiverse Collect to Build Bane. This is number 1 of 4. But let's show that exploded view outside of the box, showing Batman, all of his accessories that comes with it, 3 batarangs, and a grappling gun. So not a bad deal for everything that comes with this bat, because it does also have that typical DC stand, and it also has the collector card that we saw the image of on the back of the package. And there are our 2 legs for Bane. So let's bring it back into the package. And there is our whole presentation, and it looks fantastic, but this is not the way that we came to look at this figure. We came to look at it in a closer look outside of the package. So without further ado, let's bust into this one. And there he is, The Dark Knight trilogy from McFarlane Toys, the Christian Bale Batman. What an excellent job they did with this, and I'm loving the detail on it in just looking at it from a distance. But let's take that closer look, right? So first, starting out, let's look at that head sculpt, right? I think they did a fantastic job at capturing that likeness. Granted, you didn't really have to do a whole lot of work to capture the likeness of Christian Bale in a Batman cowl. You have to make sure you get the cowl right, make the eyes look pretty decent, and make the chin area and the mouth area look right, and I think they did a good job, right? I can't say that it does not look like Christian Bale in a Batman cowl. So they did a good job with that. The sculpting on it is fantastic. Everything is very clean. The paintwork on the mouth and the face and the eyes, I think they did a good job with it. It's that typical McFarlane detail that we can expect, and I don't really see any flaws showing through, right? So sometimes there are some flaws in the head sculpt, in the figure, or something like that from the presentation, and just looking at it right off, everything's looking pretty good, right? So let's test that flexibility, right? So this one, the neck is part of the torso, so I am happy to see that a lot more frequently now, especially with these McFarlane Toys figures, because when the head was part of the neck, or both of them were separate, it just seemed like the mobility wasn't quite there. But now that they're going with this ball joint up there at the top, we definitely have a lot of great flexibility for it. So that's our side to side, our up and down. The down is definitely excellent. Look at that. He can definitely be very brooding, looking down from the rooftops and looking up, getting ready to fire his grappling gun up to a rooftop so that he can climb and fly. Definite flexibility, very good. And we can do, yes, we do have that full Exorcist rotation capability. So all in all, great performance so far with that head flexibility. Let's take a look at the arm. So we definitely do have a butterfly joint showing through right there for the shoulder. This shoulder pad is flexible. It does kind of peel away a little bit so you can see underneath it, which is also good for its flexibility, right? So it lets it move around, and it's not a thick piece of plastic that's going to be preventing mobility. Now it does kind of flex and get caught on the cape right there, so you kind of have to pull it up and over, but we do have that bicep tricep rotation, and that seems to be working quite well. So very happy to see that. And then of course our double pinned elbow, so excellent flexibility on that. There we go. Let's let the focus catch up a little bit here. You know what? I'm going to switch to manual and do it myself. There we go. So there's our double pinned elbow. So excellent flexibility there. We do not have the forearm rotation as usual, but it does have the wrist rotation and that typical McFarlane wobble capability thanks to the ball joint that's in there with the 2 pins sticking out, as I always mention. And then the bracer here with the little claws. I don't really know what to call them, the little bat fin things on there. It's very well done. They look like they could come popping out, and you can see where they would fold down and they would collapse to be a little bit smoother. So it's a nice little detail on there, even if they don't come out. How cool would that have been? And then the other arm, of course, has that same flexibility. This one has a closed fist. This one has an open weapon holding hand, we'll say, a grip hand, because he does come with batarangs, and he also comes with that grappling gun. So he needs to be able to hold it at least with one hand, even if we don't really include real weapons. And those are the weapons that Batman uses anyway. So here we go, and mid-torso, let's see what we got here. So we do have, wow, that was honestly hidden very well. They did a great job on this because it's hidden in between these plates, but it does have that full range of motion in there, and the sculpting does go up high as far as the costume. That is an excellent backward arch. Let's see how the forward does. Not bad, right? So a pretty good forward crunch. It covers that whole plate right there. And then, of course, we have waist rotation, which is masked pretty well because it has this flexible crotch piece, and it also has the belt to help mask some of that because it helps hold a form to this flexible form and keeps it kind of up against the torso pretty well and prevents some of those odd gaps that can happen in posing. So, I mean, that's a pretty good twist right there. And we don't really have a big gap in there. All right, and then the that typical McFarlane joint for the upper legs. Now, he doesn't go quite full split, but that's okay. He is wearing a costume with a lot of armor plating on it, so, you know, you got to give a little bit of freedom on that, but yeah, not too bad. No upper thigh. We do have the double knee as usual. You know, same basic McFarlane flexibility and articulation points, but that flexibility is excellent, even with all of this armor plating on here that could easily get in the way. We have the integrated large joint right there for the ankle, which allows excellent forward and backward, and also has that toe articulation where he can also break the bat ankle. And that's the same thing on both sides, so the flexibility and articulation is the same for both legs, so glad to see that. And, you know, no real issues with it. And then just looking at the overall of this figure, right? So no paint issues or anything like that that really shine through, right? So a lot of it is this black costume, right? There's a little bit of black paint on top of the darker gray of some of the sculpted. And then we see some darker gray paint on there, it looks like. And then we also have the gold paint of the belt with the logo right there in the middle. I think it's all very well executed and well done, even with the pins fairly well matching, right? So they went with black pins, and that's fine because it still shows through. And there's such a lot of different color contrast throughout the costume that it still works. So all in all, they did a great job. The cape is that flexible rubber material. Around here on the back, we've got the paint that follows through on the belt. So you can see what it looked like around the back. I wonder how much information they were able to get to make sure that this is accurate to the costume and how it was created. There we go. So always, I like the flexible cape, but I do also like the third-party groups who make those custom capes. And I look forward to a good one for this one because a cape was a big deal for this costume. But there we go. There is our Dark Knight trilogy, Christian Bale, Batman. And here we have number 4 of the 4 in the series for the Collect-to-Build a Build-A-Bane series. Let's take a look at the back of Scarecrow here, and there it is, that typical display, right? So there's our Tom Hardy, there's our Collect-to-Build checklist, and there is our 4th card. It's an image of Scarecrow from the movies. Let's look at the side here. Scarecrow, the Dark Knight trilogy, that typical lettering, DC Gaming 7-inch sticker, Dark Knight trilogy icon logo up at the top. Over here on the other side, we have that side view of Scarecrow, still have the DC Universe Infinite QR code. And then around to the front, there is our presentation of Scarecrow. And we've got some hands. We have the Bane torso. But you know what? Let's look at an exploded view. There we have it. We can see it a little bit better. There is our Scarecrow. There are our hands. There is the stand that comes with it and the card, right? Our collector's card. So very cool. Let's bring it back into the package because as usual, this isn't the way that we came to look at it. We came to take a closer look at the figure itself. So without further ado, let's bust into this one. And there is our The Dark Knight trilogy, McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Cillian Murphy, Dr. Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow. So this one I'm going to say is probably my least favorite of the collection just because we don't really get much. I mean, I feel bad saying that. We don't get to really see the character, right? The individual that played it. We don't really get to see a representation of Cillian Murphy. Maybe they could not secure the rights to Cillian Murphy's image. Who knows? But the execution of the figure, not bad. I'm going to say that, and we're going to take a closer look at it, and I'm going to digress from my opinions, and I'm going to let you make your own as we dig through this. So let's take a closer look first at this head sculpt with the hood, right? So they did a great job with this, right? So the rope, even, I don't know if you can tell, but especially in the camera, it almost looks rope-like if it's in your peripheral, right? If I'm focusing on the mask, it looks like it's just regular old rope. And I appreciate that it is loose and it is flexible and that it moves. The eyes showing through the holes of the mask, it's just kind of creepy and haunting because they are recessed in there. It's like there is a head in there, and I'd be very curious what truly is on the inside of this mask, but I'm not curious enough to tear it apart. Maybe if I had an extra one to spare, I might try it and find out. But nevertheless, the mask is very well done. I mean, just look at it. It does look very patchwork like it is supposed to be. The crazy teeth / sewn closed mouth, and then just the odd fringes and things like that are going on in it. And I'm just very curious. I would always like to see like what this was made of and what the process, the thought with the costumers on how this was crafted by Dr. Crane and why it was done that way. And then the suit itself, just kind of a ratty fabric. It almost looks like it's a a really long straitjacket that's frayed and worn down from an insane asylum or something like that, right? It does look like that, but usually a straitjacket doesn't really go that far down. But hey, who knows? Maybe there was a longer version. It was like a full body, because it looks like it has individual straps for each leg, and just wrap it around and just keeps that person completely secure and safe, unfortunately, from themselves, because we have these long straps hanging down. But the texturing on it, the sculpting of this is very well done. But then, like, you know what? Let's look at the shoulder right here. So no butterfly joint on that. We can see that there is a flesh tone bit of a torso used underneath, but we do have good rotation on it. So that is still a useful thing. And then it's very interesting what was chosen here. The bicep tricep area is down here, which is also the elbow, right? So it is a single elbow with that rotation. So they obviously had to make some different decisions with this being the costume and the way that it is. The wrist does have the ability to move around, but it is kind of complicated because you kind of have to stick in there and get around the sleeve with it being a little bit longer. And then the sleeve is that flexible rubber material, but it does like to go right back into shape, even with the strap hanging down. The other arm has that same capability. We have a fist over here, and we have the open kind of a neutral hand on that. And then, of course, it came with two weapon-holding trigger finger hands. And then you can see the suit kind of showing through down here at the bottom. I think they did a good job with the suit. I'm a little curious why it's got these issues going on right here. I don't know if it's something that just happened or what that texture change is on that. I don't ever remember having a suit that had an issue like that, but hey, maybe it's fraying from being worn up against this this thicker material straitjacket, right? So it makes sense. And if they did that, that's an excellent little extra detail. But speaking of extra details, the suit jacket only goes this far around, so it doesn't really go too far. But up underneath, you can see that it is a full set of suit pants, right? So we do have that flexible crotch for that waist rotation. There is a little bit of movement here in the mid-torso. I realize I'm kind of bouncing around. So he can flex backwards some, but this tall, long suit does force him right back into position. The leg does have a double knee, so it does have excellent flexibility on that. And then, of course, the foot does have the forward and backward, but again, we have that pant leg cuff that's kind of getting in the way. You do have rotation. You do have the ability for ankle sprain, and we also have that toe articulation in there. So that just all the typical things that we expect from a McFarlane toy as far as articulation and mobility. But I just, again, personally, I'm going to say this is my least favorite of the whole set. I feel like it could have been executed better. I would have liked to have seen the option of it being with or without the Scarecrow getup. The paint apps on this, however, are very well done, right? So it looks like it's been traipsing through sewers and things like that and soaking up nasty, filthy water. And along the sleeves where it's been touching stuff and also soaking up just filth, because up towards the top, it looks a little bit cleaner, even if it is a bit dirty just from age, wear, and tear and the environments that it's been in. How cool would it have been if like they went with the loose straps in some of these other places, right? Just to add that little bit of extra detail. But there he is. There is our Cillian Murphy, the Dark Knight trilogy from the Dark Knight, or you know what? This guy crossed all three movies. Good for him. And here he is, Joker, number 2 of 4 of the Build a Bane collection. Let's flip him around to the back here and take a look. And we see that the Joker comes with the head and the hands. So 3 different hand selections for this Bane Build a Bane figure. Down there at the bottom, our selection of cards and the why so serious, that typical Joker statement. So let's take a look over here at this side. We've got the Joker and the Dark Knight trilogy in that typical McFarlane font. And then up there at the top, we've got the Dark Knight trilogy logo. But let's flip it over to this other side. And we've got that side window view of the Joker. There's our QR code for the DC Universe Infinite. Let's bring it around to the front. There is our Joker with his stacks of cash, which is a very interesting ad as far as, you know what, let's look at an exploded view of this one. Boom. There's our Joker figure. There is the stack of cash that comes with him. There's our typical stand and the Why So Serious card. There is the Bane accessories, so the head, the 3 selections of hands that we have. Let's bring it back into the box. And there is our front presentation, as always, laid out very nicely. But again, this is not the way that we came to look at this figure. We came to look at it in a closer look. So without further ado, let's bust into this one. And here he is, our McFarlane Toys, the Dark Knight trilogy from the Dark Knight, the Heath, we'll say legendary Joker, right? And this figure definitely does it justice. It's exciting to see McFarlane Toys diving into these amazing representations of these characters, these amazing stories that were told that were iconic, right? They changed the industry for quite a while, and you can still see the repercussions of all those changes. But we're here to talk about the Joker. Let's take a closer look at that face sculpt. Look at that thing. What a fantastic job. Look at all the details in it, right? So the wrinkles in the forehead that definitely showed through, right? Sorry to call out Mr. Ledger on that one, but you know, the wrinkles in the forehead, they were a big part of the makeup, right? It made it look more raw. It made it look more natural instead of, you know, the Joker always being that very clean, clear presentation of a criminal, right? A psychopath. But this definitely helped sell it. And the way that they managed with this sculpt and with the paintwork, they sold it, right? So the shadowing around the eyes, the black, and the way that it bleeds through into some of the quote-unquote wrinkles or crow's feet, whatever you want to call them, on the face, because this makeup stays on throughout the day, right? So it would run. It would not be perfect because he doesn't care about that. And then the around the lips, the mouth, and into the scars. You want to know how I got these scars? So there we go. I mean, just an excellent sculpt, excellent paintwork, and it's that faded white, right? So it's not all the way white through, and especially when you see it in person, into the wrinkles, a lot of the skin tone shows through, and up there around the temple, some of the skin tone is showing through, and of course up there at the top of the hairline. Speaking of the hair, look at that amazing sculpt work of that, right? It definitely gives that semi-curly appearance that Heath Ledger's hair naturally had to it. They did a great job with the coloring, right? So it's got the brown underneath, and then it's got the green paint highlighted to it, because yet again, it's something that gets applied, whether it's a dye or whatever it is, and it washes out, it runs out. He's not too worried about that. In what we get from the character is just to do it, to have the imagery, and then just let it be what it stays and what it is naturally after that. So there we go. And then here we've got a neck that is attached. It is part of the torso. So we have that ball joint flexibility for excellent articulation side to side. Up and down. Up, I'm not optimistic, right? Because we have the curly hair, which creates a pretty thick mass back there, and then it hits the collar of the coat. But down, definitely a much better performance on that, right? So we've got chin to chest on that. But let's see, can it do? Yes, it can. With little to no resistance, the full Exorcist rotation, so good. And then underneath, let's see what we have. Can we see underneath? Okay, so the lapels of the jacket are kind of fixed to this, right? It seems like it might be one piece. It's all the same type of material, the flexible rubber type material. So it is part, yeah, it definitely is part of the vest. You can see I accidentally peeled some of mine up right there. So we can't really see through that. Let's see what we can through here. Do we have butterfly joints? It's kind of tough to tell. It doesn't look like we do, actually. Yeah, so no butterfly joint in there for the shoulder, but that's okay because we do have good rotation. It does move back pretty well regardless, despite that. And then we've got bicep, tricep, full rotation on that with little to no resistance. We've got the double elbow, which helps with that flexibility. Boom, he can touch his own shoulder, his own trapezius. We don't have the forearm rotation, which is typical, but we do have that wrist rotation and the capability of the McFarlane wobble, thanks to that typical joint that we get right there. Okay, and the other arm has that same articulation. We just have a slightly different hand. This is a weapon holding hand because he is the Joker. And the other one is a fist. I digress. Here are the mid-torso, right? So we do have quite a coverage here, right? Something that's going to get in the way as far as movement and articulation, because that is one big rubbery plastic piece, but it feels like, you know, it doesn't feel like there's a lot underneath here because it is very squishy. I think we're just dealing with the plastic skeletal joint. So he does crunch forward fairly well. Back is also not bad at all. Even with the coat potentially getting in the way, that is not a bad backwards arch. And then of course we have waist rotation, and the good news of that is we have all of this stuff in the way that would cover any potential gaps that would show up, but there's not really anything under there to create a gap. They took advantage of the fact that the costume can cover the fact that there is no real torso underneath that based on the squishiness, and that gives good flexibility. And then we have, oh yeah, look at that. Even with the coat, we have a Joker split. Look at that. He just looks so calm about it. So there we go. Yeah, full on. And that is that typical McFarlane joint that we see for the upper legs. We do not have an upper thigh, but we do have that double knee. And that has excellent flexibility as well. One thing that I noticed on this is the second Joker I've done here recently, And the joints are different colors, right? So you can see the knees are a darker purple. They're a different shade of purple than the rest of the pants. I do appreciate the lines in the pants, right? So it's like that corduroy, I think is what he was wearing maybe. But it does give that impression through it, and I like the wrinkling through here. We don't have a calf rotation, but we do have foot movement. We have that typical joint in there, but the bottom of the pants, the cuff, is kind of getting in the way of some of the rotation capability, and the forward and backward are also kind of impeded by that. We do have that toe articulation, and if we try hard enough, you can have at least an ankle sprain, even if it's not broken. And then the other leg has that same flexibility and capability. Paint apps, nothing really to call out, right? We already saw how the head was so masterfully done. And we have this golden chain here, which is, it's just an excellent looking chain hanging down. And I like the way that it's made, right? So it is, as you can see, very flexible, very chain-like. It might still be plastic, but it definitely kind of, it doesn't not feel like a massive golden chain hanging down. I like the way that works. It's not stiffer plastic like the coat's made out of. It is still that rubberized plastic, and it is very flexible, but it is, again, that rubberized plastic. So it looks like it would be great if there was a way to get all of this removed, and man, how cool would some cloth goods be there? But that might be a little bit of overkill. May not be necessary. I'm gonna say it's not necessary for enjoyment of the figure. I think they did a great job with it. So if you get a chance to pick this one up, definitely do so. It is an excellent representation of this Joker and of the Heath Ledger character in general. So there we go. There is our Dark Knight Trilogy McFarlane Toys Joker. From the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, the Dark Knight Trilogy 4-figure Build-A-Bane set, Bane. There he is with all the pieces put together. I used one set of hands, just the fisted hands for this one, just for that intimidation piece. But there he is, all fully assembled. Let's take a closer look at this guy. I think they did a good job, right? It definitely looks like old Tom Hardy Bane, especially on the camera. It looks a lot better, a lot bulkier for some reason. So the camera is adding 10 pounds, I guess that's what I'm saying. But the sculpt of the head, right? So there's our mask. I think it's pretty good, right? I'll say pretty good. The mask I feel like could have had a little bit more detail, but you know, what do I know? Because it had that opening, you could kind of see his mouth through a kind of like a metal mesh, right? And you can't really see that there. It would have been neat if they found a way to do that, but that would have been probably asking a lot for a figure in that $20 to $25 realm, especially even if it is a Build-A-Figure from purchasing 4 figures at that $20 to $25 realm. But around here on the back, you can see they painted it very well to give it that metallic look, right? So it looks like it's a little bit of a dull metal, but some shiny spots right there for where those lines run up for the gas or whatever it is that helps him with his pain. But you can also see that the metal looks like it's scuffed, right? Because it's seen some stuff. It's seen battles. It's seen all the stuff that Bane has been doing since he's been given this metal mask to help with his comfort and help him stay alive, right? So there we go. And the facial quality in there, right? The sculpting of the eyebrows, the sculpting and painting of the eyes. I think they did a very good job. It definitely looks like the Tom Hardy Bane shining through. Speaking of good jobs, let's see how they did with the articulation. So neck attached to the torso. So we should have pretty good side to side because it is on a ball joint. I saw when I put it on, and you probably saw when we saw the separate pieces. So there we go. Side to side is great. Forward and backward. So forward, excellent for that chin to chest. Backward, looking up, looking very good. Definitely far beyond what straightforward would have been. And we've got that full Exorcist rotation. So excellent there. No pun intended. Exorcist with excellent. And there is our butterfly joint in there, right? So these pieces were part of the torso when it was packaged in there, and they actually came out, so I got to see a little bit more closely what the actual butterfly joint pieces look like, and they do kind of look like cut olives. I'm not gonna lie, it looks like an olive slice. But I digress. It's a good way that they did this, right? They covered it with the vest. They have it that flesh tone, so it is just an easy transition from shoulder into the actual shoulder, right? And it's good mobility on there, the round and round, and good flexibility. But we do have that bicep tricep rotation, which is very well integrated with the musculature. So they did a good job on that. And we have that double pinned elbow, right? And it is, the pins are in that flesh tone, so you can't really tell that there's that they're there, right? They're not too prominent, because even though it does have them, they did do that flesh tone, and it matches very well, right? And it's kind of hard to tell on the camera, but the way that they did the flesh, there's a lot of different kind of highlights, some pinks and stuff like that all throughout there to kind of show just what flesh tone would be, right? It's not just one even color tone. And then here in the wrist, we have that full capability of the rotation, the McFarlane wiggle possibility, and this is a very good view of what that ball with the two pieces coming off of it look like. So there we go. And moving it down, the other arm has that same articulation. We've got the bracer on the glove here on the other arm, but otherwise the functionality and capability is the same. And then I've got the two fisted hands on there, and as we saw, there were a couple other hands, right? Some with the fingers kind of sticking up, some with the hand kind of wide open. Very good Bane pose hand articulation and sculpts, right? And then here in the mid-torso, this is kind of like the Joker, right? So there's just more like skeletal stuff in there. There's not really a full torso. So we do have some pretty good mobility, right? So arching backwards, not bad at all. Arching forwards, also pretty good because we don't have a torso in the way. But the rubbery crotch area of the pants does kind of move up, even if they made them go pretty high to help mask that, right? So I like that they did that. That's a good little detail because you can't really see up under there very easily, even with them arched pretty far back. Right, it looks like he's dodging a nice roundhouse from the Bats, or from Catwoman, but there we go. So, and then of course we have that waist rotation, which is also blocked very well because we have two rubbery pieces interacting with each other, and they're going to flex very well to stop having any kind of extra gaps. Here on the legs, we do have full split capability because we have that McFarlane joint in there. Now I will say plugging these legs in there was a little bit challenging, and I had to look at it multiple times to make sure that it didn't put them on there backwards, because it just seemed a little awkward at first. But you know, when I look at the back, it's definitely clear that that is the back. But I was just confused because it just didn't, I don't know, I just wasn't sold on the way that I had assembled it. But regardless, here is our double knee for excellent flexibility there as usual. And then of course we have the ankle that is integrated as part of the boot. So that gives good forward and backward, excellent forward and excellent backward. I changed my wording. And then of course our toe articulation with that ankle breaker capability. And that is on both sides of the legs. But there we go, there is our Bane figure, and let's take a look at those paint apps, see if we have anything that was an opportunity. And in looking at it, not really, I don't see anything, right? So we have that flexible rubber material that is this vest with the lighter tan color and then the darker brown throughout there, and it looks like it is all painted very well. None of the rivets or anything are any kind of different colors or any of the buckles. That would have been kind of cool to see. But I will admit, from memory, I'm not exactly sure if the rivets and buckles were a different color for old Bane in the movie itself. So it's kind of, you know, hard to say for sure. But if they were, it would have been cool because it would have been an extra thing that would have helped make it pop. Especially down here, it looks like we have a little bit of a strap going on there. But all in all, I'm not going to say that that's enough to fault the figure. I think they did a good job with it. It's always difficult to match the appearance of an actual human being that was an actor and create an action figure of it. And I think they did a good job. I hope that this is the beginning of more from the Dark Knight trilogy because there are a lot of potential characters out there that we could see. But there is our Build-A-Figure Bane. Well, that about brings us to the end of this dark and brooding episode. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Now, if we ever do a review of something that you are trying to find for yourself, please follow and DM us on Instagram at JKCollectsToys so we can help with the search if we don't already have a way of getting one. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments and let YouTube know by subscribing and clicking that like button. The more that happens, the more it helps the channel because YouTube will recommend us so we can hopefully reach even more people and collectors and help them find the things that they need. And if you'd like to see some more videos, we do have some links on your screen for you to check out. But above all, as always, collecting or not, we are all in this world together. Let's look out for each other. Thanks.